Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the HerStory Global Summit. This is Gertrude Matcha here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And our first speaker for the day is the beautiful Andrea Kalf, coming to us all the way from Hawaii. Welcome, 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 Andrea. It's good to have you with us today. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much, Gertrude, for this invitation, and big aloha from Hawaii. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, so I'm just going to read your bio briefly to make people aware of who you are and where you're from. Andrea was born and raised in Germany, and she was always aware of her consciousness. She was far away from her consciousness, my apologies, Andrea, from her spiritual path, or rather, her life's vocation until she was 32. When she was diagnosed with cancer in 2006 and was discovered by a South Korean shaman who put her on the path that she's on now. Andrea, I'm going to let you tell us the rest of your story. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, as Gertrude said, I'm born in Bavaria, raised in Bavaria. I'm a mother of 5 daughters in the age between 31 to 11, and I'm a grandmother of 2, and I was far away from my spiritual path. But I went in a non-school for many, many years. So my parents, there was very much in the Catholic Church, and they didn't appreciate any spiritual practice. Or my older brother, who did suicide on my 14th birthday, he was a very spiritual person, but they divided us in two, that to make sure that I never come on a spiritual path. But then when I was 32 years, I was invited on a shaman congress in Austria, and my spiritual mother from South Korea, she acknowledged me and she took me as her student for many, many years. And I was the first European that ever got under this teaching and the initiation as a Korean Mudang in South Korea. I always felt differently my whole life, but I couldn't experience. I always had dreams that there was coming true in my life. I always could read very easily people. I informed my parents. They both had a business, what business was good or bad. I could tell them who was lying or who was not truthful to them. I was very inconvenient for my parents. What took them place that I was not more allowed to be there when they got some visits or having some business meetings or some dinners. So there was more or less hiding me from other people. I was always, I would say, in the community more or less an outsider because, for the same reason, because I always saw that everybody likes to wear a mask and being not honest or being a little bit tricky or not straightforward. And I never understood why this happened. After my initiation in Korea and after all this teaching, suddenly everything made sense. But it was a very difficult destiny who was starting. It was not that I suddenly everything was gone and everything was easy. It took me a couple of years to integrate everything. I had to change my whole life from being a mom and being home. And for sure, I always worked something, with my parents too. And I had my own business and my own job. But then being in the public, being on a spiritual path, being, I would say, always researched on me and always looked at me. And I had to find my own way, and I find my own way through my own story, through my own experience of cancer and the development of my own path, that I had to walk in this kind of sickness and fear and not knowing what are the next steps. And it opened me a completely new door that I start to be, I would say for myself, an example how I could other people help, and being together with doctors and therapists. And if there are mental therapists, if there are cancer researchers, I started working with them very closely together and sharing, what I felt as a patient and how we can help other people to understand that they don't have so much fear, and that both ways are very important, to make the person, first of all, to acknowledge when they're sick and then to get treated, and that every both way and paths have the right to be there, and that there is not a fight between Western medicine and spirituality, and nobody has the right by themselves, and that we only can work together. So this is for what I'm standing. Besides this, I'm in the birth world since over 25, 27 years. I worked very closely with a midwife in Germany who had her own birth house for 40 years. She's now retired. She's a very, very experienced midwife. And I'm there as a doula for mamas, for the couples, and also for the children whenever they have questions or when we're going to birth. I'm writing also my own stories and my own books, and I'm working together with psychiatric doctors all over the world, as well as in Hawaii and as well as in Europe or in Mexico. And we have a science study in Austria, where we're treating people with the way of my gift. It's not me as a person, Andrea, it's the spiritual world who are allowed to work through me, and where we study on patients of this hospital and to make a compare science study between Western medicine and shamanism. This is ongoing in Austria and Vienna. I'm living in Hawaii because my two little daughters are half Hawaiian and half German, and my grandbaby as well. And I'm traveling for my work, and my children are residents here, and me as well. I teach on several, as a guest speaker on several universities for religion and anthroposophy and ethnology, about my own past. And I'm still, I would say we're all still students of life. We never end to learn by ourselves, and it's for me the same. I go regular to other shamans. We're having meetings. We travel together. I go in other cultures. I'm very interested to understand the different ways, and also where are the connection. They're all the same, and even come back in the religious way. So shamanism is the oldest technique of human beings, what we have in spiritual paths. It's far away from this very difficult dogmas that we have a lot of time in religion's part, but it's also a way of a lot of discipline and I would say learning by yourself who you are, that you can help others, and being a part of the nature, what a shaman always needs. So a lot of time I need to be alone for myself. I need to be out in the nature. I need to be reconnected with the gods and the spirits of nature, and then with myself, to get restored. When you see me, or when you have a private session with me or workshops, I like to be one-on-one. For me, the most important is that you feel safe, and I don't want that you tell me a story about you. I will share with you what I hear from my spirits, what I see about you. That's my gift, and that's where it where I come into the picture with doctors and therapists when they are stuck with the clients or the patients, when they cannot move forward. They ask Andrea, what do you see? What could be the problem? What we didn't realize besides all the medical stuff that we already include? Because we are body, mind, and soul. We are not just our body. And everything of this is coming together for us. And this is where I'm looking. My eyes are almost like I would say, an X-ray. A lot of time, I don't remember what somebody has on as a clothes or anything like this. This is what I see. If the person had an accident, if the person is very unhappy in the relationship, if the person has a lot of financial problems or mental health issues, that's what I can point out. And this is where I reflect them back to therapists and doctors, or where I bring them into the picture and say, did you ever try this or this? And then from my part as a shaman, I can do all kind of different stuff. I can do ceremonies, prayers, I can do amulets, I have a lot of tools that I can help as well. But for me, it's important that we all help together, and that always is the goal to the best for our next person, and being in peace and being helpful, and to look and pray how we can support our family and our partners and our children. What is our next generation? And this is where I'm standing for. I'm also being a speaker for APA. APA is Birth Psychologic in the United States and all around the world, because our paths as humans are starting way long before we arriving here on Earth, and we always connected to our ancestors. So the roots, a lot of time for problems, can be way back in our ancestor history. And this is where I'm also listening and researching together then with my clients, and a lot of time it makes sense then that they understand, okay, I have these problems, what my ancestor had, my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, so how we can change this. And this is then where I come in the picture, and I will do ceremonies and prayers to transform the situation for the clients, and for a hopefully better and peaceful life with everything what this person's wish. So I don't come what I wish for the person. It's always that you come to me and you let me know exactly what you need, and I will go back and do my prayers in nature, in my altar, in my shrine, what you see in my bag with my Korean gods. And I let you know if I'm able, through my spirits and my gods, if I can help you. If I cannot help you, I will be a bridge to different other shamans and to other healers. So I will not just let you stand alone. I will be always there to help. And if I have the feeling there needs to be a doctor involved, then I will also connect to them. Through my own experience, and a lot of time people think that the way of a shaman is always easy. It's a very we can do everything for ourselves. This is not true. Our life is a lot of time very difficult because we need to experience a lot of stuff on ourselves to can help other people. So to understand that a life of a shaman is a lot of time with sacrificing, with suffering, with being alone, nobody really understand you. So when I go in ceremonies, I'm taking the story of my clients onto me. This means I have sometimes physical as mental the same problem what my clients brings to me, and it makes me very excluded then from my family, because I cannot be around them because I need to go through this whole story, through the whole life process of the person or even of the ancestors. And then I get my advice from my spirits, what I have to do and how I can help. So it's far away from the new age where we just turn a candle on or jumping around a fire. What is also very important and nice, that this field exists. It's really like in us, around us, and it's suffering for others. So that's what the most people don't understand what shamanism and shamans mean, and being in trance in ceremonies and you don't remember anything afterwards anymore, and the clients or the people around ask you, do you remember, and you can just say, no, I don't, because you're entering the different worlds. The shaman is the bridge between the upper world, the middle world, and the other world, and we are the translator for these worlds. So we are the speaker for the spiritual world. We are expecting nothing, and then we get all this information. So we always have to be empty from our ego. We have to be empty from our wishes, and we just need to be, I think, translator is the bridge between the different worlds. This is the best explanation that I can give to you. I get asked a lot of time, Andrea, what did you help, or what did you heal? I always say, it's not me, it's a wonder who can come through me, but I don't share this so much because it's not me as a person, as Andrea. I had incredible wonders that could happen, but to push myself or put myself higher as a person about this, no, then I will lose my connections to my spirits and to my gods and to the power of the source. So always being humble, always being on prayer, always being disciplined. It's like, for example, if we do ceremonies, we are also coming together, other shamans in a group. We have to have a strong diet for days before, in the ceremony, days afters. We have to clean ourselves for sometimes 4 weeks, sometimes for 2 weeks, before we can take another client on. When a group of shamans come together, that's also a lot of time a question of clients. They ask why one shaman is giving me this information and then the other shaman is giving me this information. Everything has the right to be there, because we have different spirits, we have different connections to the nature. Nothing is wrong or right in this moment. We see it from a different angle, and I always work like that. I include everything. I include the whole family. So if you come to me as one person, I will ask you also about your mother, your partner, your children, because a lot of time the person who sees me is sometimes not the person who really has the problem. A lot of time this person is suffering for others. And then when we find together, and when I do my prayers and listen to the spirit, it comes from a complete different part of the family that nobody ever had any thoughts in it. Suddenly everything makes a sense, and then this person start feeling more confident again, more like a lot of time we forget that everything has a spirit, everything is alive. We are born from nature, we come from nature, and we will return. And everything what we do is collecting experience. Nobody of us can take their car, their house, all this material stuff. We cannot take it with us. We can give it to our next generation, but for ourselves, for the next life, we taking on our experience and what we had to experience in our path as a human being, and for our soul. I'm This is for what I'm standing, that we are looking for this. Thank you so much. Yes, not at all. Yeah. No, you're right. Oh, it was very, very difficult because, as I said, my parents, they put me in a non-school for 6 years, so I was far away even from the Bavarian culture from the beginning of my life. And coming then first back in the Bavarian culture was a very difficult step for me. And then being, I would say, outed like this, because I was not asked. Suddenly, when I was coming back from Korea, I was super sick after my initiation, and I didn't realize that this will jump into the news to Germany, and my mother called me on one morning and say, "Andrea, I'm so upset with you. Your daddy was going on the gas station and there's the newspaper and you are in front of the newspaper. Andrea heals with spirits. You're crazy. You cannot do this to us." And I say, "Mama, I have no idea about it." And she didn't believe me in the beginning. And then, and from this newspaper, it went to the other newspaper. And suddenly I was like, I had my stamp, again. And my oldest daughter, she went to school in the same school that I went, and a couple weeks later, we had a parents' meeting, and I realized by myself, some people would not talk to me anymore, and I was like, and some people say, "Oh, Andrea, it's great what you do." So I had no idea how much of an impact this had into the public, because I was going to Korea inside of myself to get rid of my cancer, and for sure I knew there was this initiation, but I didn't had this bigger picture what it means for me in the future. That's like almost the same, I was like was 17 years old in Malibu as an au pair. And I didn't like it so much because the father of the family say, "Andrea, one weekend we will fly to Hawaii." And I got fear when I heard Hawaii, and I was almost running away. I say, "I don't want to be in Hawaii." I couldn't explain it. And I went back to Germany. And years later, my second daughter, she started, "Mama, I want to go to Hawaii." I said, "Denise, that's never gonna happen, because we're in Germany, we cannot finance and all this." And then in the same time, when all this story happened that I had cancer and I had to wait for my ceremony in Korea because they didn't allow me to have any operations, I had to wait. I met a lady who was a doctor, and she said, "Oh, we are living in Hawaii, and one day maybe you can visit us." And her daughter went with my daughter to school, and then I say, "Okay, Denise, maybe we can do this." And she said, "Promise me." And what do you do as a mom, when you're close on the edge and you meet death, you promise everything to your children. And I say, "Okay, if I will get healthy, I will bring you to Hawaii." And then, yeah, this mother invited us then to Hawaii, and this is how it was starting, that we was coming here to Hawaii. It was in 2007, and since this time, we're and I was traveling all the years between Hawaii, Korea, Mexico, Europe, so this is, like, always the circles that I go, and I had to separate a lot of time myself from my children, what is very, very difficult for me. So it's not an easy way, It's not like what a lot of people think, "Oh, now you're a shaman and you only be super easy and happy and you can wish everything for yourself." It's the opposite. I cannot help myself and I cannot help my family. First of all, that you always have an inner voice by yourself. That's the most important. It's your inner guidance, your soul, you know? Then I always say to my clients, for sure, listen to this, what your doctor say. Yeah, but listen to your inner voice. Get always a second opinion, you know. Your fear can be a guide, you know, listen to the fear, not being afraid. And for me, a lot of time, what I saw and experienced by myself and also with my clients, it's a big chance, you know, because this diagnosis will let you think about your life, you know, it makes you a lot of time the first shock. But on the other hand, it's also a big luck because if we have an accident and we are suddenly gone, we cannot think about our life anymore. And if we can look this from a different point and say, okay, hmm, I'm really happy. I'm really doing this what I want to do, you know, and make me a list. This is what I tell all my clients. Tell yourself what you want to experience in life. Start living, you know, and try not to be now frozen, you know. So tell your body and your immune system, hi, I want to be alive and start doing this. That's a good natural medicine. Yeah. Oh, I changed everything. For sure, I was in shock. I was in shock. I cried forever. I was in fear. I had to separate myself from my family completely for 10 days to understand what I wanna do, for what I can stand without anyone, you know, because a lot of time we're doing stuff for others, you know. In this moment, it's about you. Because if you're not more there, you cannot help the others. You're not a part of the family anymore. So what is really what you want, not what serves others, other people. And for me, it's always nature and for me, the ocean. And I went there for 10 days and I was just sitting on the beach and staring on the water. You know, I was not drinking, I was a little bit eating, but I stared on the water. And after a while, there was this little voice who say, okay, try this with Korea. You have nothing to lose, you know, why you don't do this? You know, in the beginning, when I got the diagnosis, I didn't think for a moment on this. And the fear, it takes a long time that this because like for us a lot of time cancer is death. This is what we all see, you know, and nobody tells you it can be a chance, you know, like every other sickness too. We have so many other sicknesses what also is very dangerous, you know, and we all having the same path. We are born to die, you know, this is what we all forget. To every single moment we have the death with us. It's not somewhere around. But suddenly, when we get this diagnosis, we are like, what? There's death? And this is like where we all have to change a little bit our minds and our thinking that we say, okay, this is always around us, whatever we do, you know? And it can be our friend, you know? And it has to everyone, to everyone. It's not single one person who will not have this path, and that we are a part of the nature, and that it's so important that we take care of this, you know? It's like that we stop fighting, stopping war, stopping being mean, you know, and being on peace and to try to understand the other person. It's the most important. And first, ourselves. No, I learned through COVID what we all have to learn that it works perfectly on Zoom. I prefer for sure personally, but it's good with Zoom too, you know. And if I really need to see you, then we will find a way to. Thank you so much. Well, why? You're welcome, Gertrude. Have a good day. Okay. Bye bye.
Yes. It is what time? 11:16. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I like to start a little bit with with steal a line from my dad. Um, he's late, and his name was Kofi, and a lot of times people mispronounced his name and would call him Coffee. And he always said, if you by the slip of tongue call me coffee, make me black, hot, and sweet. I'm not coffee, but I like the analogy, make me black, hot, and sweet. And I like to also think of of myself as somebody who loves heat. I like hot days. I like hot food, and yeah, it's a very interesting relationship with heat, because for some people or some things, heat makes them a softer version of themselves, or it reduces their tenacity. But for some things, heat brings out the best in them. And I want to be someone who heat brings out the best in me, making me aromatic like coffee. Having said that, my name is Equia Pia Lindberg. As you already heard, I live in Berlin, Germany. I come from Ghana. Um, I was born in Nairobi, Kenya, and just as a 2-month baby, I was brought back to Ghana. So don't ask me anything about Nairobi. I won't be able to tell you. And yeah, not long after, I was not even yet 5 years when my dad decided he wanted to do take a sabbatical. He was a lecturer at the university, and he decided to take a sabbatical and also do a PhD in the United States of America. So I spent almost 5 years there, spent my formative years in America. I went my first time into kindergarten, school, nursery, everything. I did it in America. And and when I was around second grade, yes, so I finished second grade in America, and then I moved back to Ghana, and we were in Ghana for just 2 months, and my dad got a great contract in Ibadan, Nigeria. So we moved again from Ghana to Nigeria, and I did my third grade there. And in Ibadan, we called it primary 3. So just in this short period of my life, I'm moving from second grade to primary 3. And after a year, my dad thought, okay, Nigeria is too hectic for him. We moved back to Ghana. And so then from primary 3, I'm going to class 4. So just the way of saying which level of education I was in those 3 years changed from second grade to primary 3 to class 4. What an amount of change in just 3 years of a child's life. That wasn't the end of it. So after my primary education in Ghana, it was very popular to go to boarding school for secondary school, which in some countries you would call maybe junior high school and senior high school, but was all together in one school, and it was in boarding school. So I went to boarding school, another very abrupt change, leaving the comfort of going. My mom was a homemaker. You go home to sumptuously cooked meals, and now you're in boarding school, not so great the meals, and no mommy when you come back from school. And I spent about 7 years in this education. And another thing that was very very important to notice, that was an all-girls school. So I was in an all-girls educational institute, finished from this all-girls educational institute, and went to the university to study geological engineering. And guess what? I was the only girl in my class. So that's where the whole idea of diversity and inclusion, I had to be faced with it at a very young age. So there I came from. I also have just one brother. We had 3 girls with 1 boy. So you come from such a family where the boy is the minority. You go to a secondary school where there are no boys, and maybe the few male teachers are in the minority. And then you come into your university class and you are in the minority. So these were all very shocking changes. Today I say this and I smile, but I don't know how it would be for a man to move from a male-dominated area to a female-dominated area. But women are just naturally nurturing, and whether it's in secondary school or at home or whatever, your sisters are nurturing. I can imagine that some brothers are also very nurturing, but just being very surrounded by females all the time, and then jumping into this all male dominated environment, it was not easy. I remember there was a time I wanted to join a study group, and they had various study groups, the guys. And one of them, I asked if I could join. They said, no, like we like to study in our rooms, and it wouldn't be very convenient for you, so you can't join us. Luckily, I found a group who accepted me and were honored to have me and enjoyed having me, and it was not all bad. But there are some circumstances where you feel really lonely and left alone. And these were some of the circumstances I had in these places where you're the only one in the room. Well, I didn't know that was preparing me for the future. Of course, not only the future, way long ahead of me future, but even the immediate future. So the first job I had, I was the only lady in the whole company. Even our cleaners, our cooks, everybody was a man, and I was the only lady. And as a geologist, we lived together. So we lived together in a house far away, somewhere in the fields, where we did our exploration and stuff like that. So I was, at first it was like, okay, I had the guys for the lectures, but I went home to my flatmates, to my roommates, And there I had my ladies around me. Now I lived with them. Like, it's only when I went into my room, I was all alone. When I got out of my room, I was surrounded by men. It was very interesting. I really enjoyed being with these guys, but it's still not, it still has its challenges, and the need to adapt at times to these environments. And from there, I worked a bit as a geologist in Ghana, also in other institutions, and then I came to Germany for the first time to do a further my education. I did a short course. I went back, and then I did my master's. And in this master's program, it was an international program. We were men, women, everything was there. It was very, very interesting. And after that, I met my husband then, and so I got married to a German, and we went to live again in Ghana for a few years, and then we decided to be back in Germany. So the kids could also, I have 3 beautiful girls, and so the kids could also have a relationship with their grandparents on this side of the globe. We decided to live here for a while, and this is where a lot of other changes had to come into my life. So of course I had been to Germany, but as a student it was a totally different lifestyle. I mean, you were surrounded by other international people, other international students, and even in the universities, the Germans that you meet are exposed to international people. They have a different mindset. And then now I'm in the real culture where everything is totally different. And after a while, at this point, I had about 3 degrees and a CV. But I realized after a while, trying to get into the job market, my CV was not going to speak anything for me because, yeah, I had no experience in Europe or in the Western world. All my work experience had I had got that all in Africa, in Ghana to be precise. And for many people, that they don't know what pertains there and didn't know where to place me here. So I realized I had to reinvent myself. Already before we went to Ghana, I had waited a while for my husband to finish his PhD. And in this period, I got a degree I got a certificate to teach English to adult learners, which is called CELTA. So even in this area, I realized after a while that people were not comfortable that if they would ask you where you come from, you're from Africa. They didn't think an African was supposed to be the one teaching them English. Many people don't even know that English is the official language in some African countries. So I faced my challenges also as an English teacher, but anytime in the classroom, my class presence and my rapport with the students always went ahead and erased any of their prejudices or whatever they had against me. But then when I came back, I realized like I wanted to do something also a little bit more challenging, with my, and also use all the things I had learned in my past. And I decided to get a certificate in everything I already had in English, redo it in German. I did that. It still didn't make a difference in my CV. No, I got no calls, no emails, nothing, no responses from all my applications. And then I decided to look for only jobs where they wrote, in Germany, we call it Quereinsteiger. That means you're just coming in with no previous experience in that particular job. And when I browsed through those, a lot of them were IT jobs, software engineering. Then I said, okay, I might be able to do this. I'm not so young anymore, but why not give it a try? So I decided I wanted to do a boot camp. And then even then I was always coming against people saying, oh, with the boot camp, you have to have C1 level of German. And I do speak German, but I was not prepared to go that far just to get a certificate in software engineering, because actually in many things you do in software engineering, it's all in English. And even in Germany, a lot of times you're using English words and stuff like that. So I was like, no, I want to learn something that I can use to work. So let me just move in this direction. So just even being able to get a boot camp was really a struggle. And I got the boot camp, and I did the boot camp. And since 2020, I've been working as a software engineer. Now I could really leverage all the experiences I had had from my childhood, moving from place to place, having to change my circle of friends, my just to adapt to various situations had become something that I had learned. But in every stage, it seemed like I was challenged to adapt in a different way and even in a stronger way. So first it was just from one country to another where people were welcoming, people were interested in you. Then from the other way around, you go from one place to the other where people think, okay, can anything good come out of where she's coming from? And then there's the whole male female thing, going from an all female school into an all male dominated school. Little did I know that I was going to enter an industry where no matter where in the world you went, it was male dominated. And in the boot camp, it was not that much the problem, the same. But once I went into the work world, I realized that many times I found myself alone. Um, I I was only able to get through these circumstances because I was lucky to at times have very good bosses who were interested in pushing women and were interested in pushing me and believed in me and made me believe in myself and try to pave ways for me, even when there was resistance from other people. And this is what has been able to keep me. And today I say all these things smiling, but there have been many tears shed along the way, where there were many times where, you know, I just felt like what am I doing here? There are times I even try to find what are the what are the industries where there are more women than men. I'm out of here. But yeah, I have made it gradually to this point, and I want to leave you with one word, that the only reason I've come this far is the willingness and ability to adapt, adjust to new circumstances, develop new skills, develop new relationships, acquire new skills, acquire new relationships, acquire new knowledge, and progress in whatever you've acquired, whatever you already have. Don't stay at the same level, progress. And then this will cause you to transform yourself. Don't change, don't move from being a queer to being Gertrude, but progress and transform to a better version of a queer. Thank you.
You have had a fascinating, fascinating life. You know, just listening to you speak, you're like a chameleon that morphs and changes and fits into different environments. Now,
Yeah.
how did this impact your kids? You know, I've lived in 7 countries. My children, like you, had to adapt from going from one country to the next. What was the biggest impact on your children?
Yeah, so luckily for them, most of the changes I talked about was in my childhood. So my dad would have to answer that question, but my kids have only had to move from Ghana to Germany, but they did move from Hamburg to Berlin. And recently, I always teased all my family with the fact that the next time I move, I'm going to Bermuda. And then the kids were like, no, mommy, let's stay in Berlin. So that already tells a lot, right? They are done with all this movie. Let us stay somewhere for a while.
I love it. Absolutely awesome. I'll just ask the audience if they have any questions. We've got one question already.
Yeah, thank you so much, I'm Catherine. I'm really interested in your experiences. That was fascinating, and the importance of diversity in tech, and especially having women in tech. And what perspective do you think you bring to the industry that is really lacking, and what sort of pushback have you had if you've tried to say, well, that's not how I see things, if that's a clear enough question?
Yeah, sorry. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I couldn't hear you so well. That's why I used my earphones. It's very clear with the earphones. But could you repeat the last part of your question?
All right, she's going to repeat the question.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm just thinking how incredibly important it is to have not just the male perspective in tech, especially, to have diverse people contributing in tech. And I'm wondering what perspective you may have brought and that differed from the sort of hegemonic perspective, and what kind of pushback you might have received for saying, well, that's not how I see things. This is how I see things from your perspective as a woman, as a Ghanaian, you know, or having Ghanaian background. Yeah.
That's a very good question. I ask myself sometimes the same question, because sometimes there is a lot of pushback, and some people think, okay, she's not long enough in this industry. And these are things that are spoken without words, but we're not young. We can read body language, we can read the signs, the microaggressions, all kinds of things. And people think, okay, who is she to to have a say, you know? Yeah, I think I've got a lot of pushback, and there are times I'm sort of like saying one thing, you know, scratching the waters, and I go and hide a bit and just say, okay, now I hide in my corner. But most of the time, I get justified, you know, like somehow something happens that proves my point. And although there was resistance in the beginning, people might never come back to me and say, oh, you were right. But you see them start to do the things you talked about.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
Yeah,
wonderful. Listen, we're going to let you go to sleep. Thank you for waking up in the middle of the night and being with us during the summit. It's been an absolute honor to share you with our community today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored also to have been here.
Thank you
Have a
so
lovely
much.
rest of the day.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wow. Absolutely fascinating. So we are now going to go to New Zealand. Hasn't this been an interesting morning? We moved from Hawaii/Germany. Oops. And now we're bringing somebody from New Zealand to the stage. And there she is, Ellie. Good morning. How are you? What time of the day is it in beautiful New Zealand? Fantastic. All right. I just want to make sure that this is coming through. Ellie, I'm going to give you a different link. I have a horrible feeling the way that I have been streaming hasn't worked. Somebody sent me a message just now. So let me give you a link. I'll put it on LinkedIn, onto this link. And there we go. Yes. All right. And that's a good thing. We've got people who are watching online who are letting me know what's working and what's not. So just want to make sure that the technology is not failing us. And we've had quite a few people who are also putting comments on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Thank you for being here with us today. Like I said, now we're going to jump to beautiful New Zealand. There you are. Okay, awesome. So, Ellie, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Okay. Tell everybody your name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Looking forward to it.
Welcome to the stage.
Hi, everybody. My name's Ellie Banbury, and I'm from Auckland in New Zealand, and I've lived here for almost 17 years now. I'm originally from England, and I moved here when I was 12 years old. So it's basically been my home for most of my life. And I've traveled around a lot to Europe and America and the Philippines and Australia. And I call myself a bit of a global citizen. My business that I've recently jumped into and created has been something that I've realized has been a lifelong project. And it's only recently been highlighted to myself why it's so needed. And I'll talk more about that very soon. But I really wanted to start today's talk with sharing a bit about my background as a life coach for teenagers, and how my own personal journey alongside my work has opened me up to what I'm doing now. So a couple of years ago, well, about 3 or 4 years ago, I started a business called the Big Sister Project, and that was coaching teenagers and sometimes their parents as well, who were struggling with anything from school stuff, just basic life, day-to-day things, and occasionally there would be more intense things that they were going through that were causing them to feel depressed or anxious and sometimes suicidal. So I had a big, broad spectrum of things I was dealing with as I was coaching teenagers. And I had many, and in the peak time of my coaching, I had about 20 young people that I was working with at the same time, one-to-one or in a group setting. And it was a powerful time of my life. And I learned a lot about myself through working with them. And through that journey of coaching, I branched out and worked with various other community members and coaches and people that were working in that space and doing similar things to me. So it really opened up the world for me to see what was being done for like people with mental health challenges and young people that were feeling really lost. And as I was moving through that process of creating everything, because as an entrepreneur you need to create stuff all the time, new programs, new ways of working, and kind of keep up with the times, I was realizing more and more that everything I was doing was something that was actually across the board. It wasn't just teenagers that needed to do this kind of work on themselves. It wasn't just teenagers that were feeling lonely and lost and isolated and heavy and like they'd been carrying the world on their shoulders. And the more I worked with their parents and their community, I started to see that more and more. And around the same time that I had dove like straight into coaching teenagers, I experienced a lot of family grief. I lost an uncle to suicide in the UK and flew back. And he took his own life just before the COVID lockdowns finished. So we weren't able to actually go overseas to help him, which was, I think, a big factor in how his journey ended, because he needed people around him that were safe and able to hold space for him. There's only so much you can do over the phone. So that was a really tragic part of my life that came right at the same time as the peak of my coaching with all the teenagers that I was working with. So I was managing a lot of grief myself and family stuff that was going on and helping my family navigate their grief as well. And it was hugely challenging. And then last year, so May 2023, I lost my grandmother in the UK, so a year after my uncle passed away. And so we went back for her funeral as well. And there's a whole lot of other family stuff that comes up with that as well, and taking time overseas. So alongside my journey, walking with teenagers and helping them really dive into what's heavy, what's hard, I was navigating my own and a whole lot of family stuff too. And I know that everyone experiences stuff at the same time as working. They're not separate. We all go through things like simultaneously. But what was really incredible to witness is after my grandmother passed away and I came back to New Zealand from having 2 weeks in the UK for her funeral, I had just had this instinct to move away from the title of the Big Sister Project. And I'll talk more about the Big Sister Project in a second. Move away from that. And just use my name and step forward as Ellie Banbury and actually work with everyone and anyone. And I embarked on this, probably I'd say about 6 to 8 month journey, about 6 to 8 month journey of discovering what that looks like and what my real true message is and what I really am here for. Because I'd seen a lot as a young person as well. I'd seen a lot through my own personal experiences as a teenager and an early 20-something, and witnessed a heck of a lot around me with the kids I'd worked with and their families. So it was a kind of a deep dive into myself. I really went inwards, and I worked with a business coach, and she helped me unpack all these things that had been bubbling and all these messages that were coming through for me from my intuition. And I moved towards working with grief. And now I call myself a soul first guide, speaker, and channel. And I'll talk again more about that soon. But the grief part is the bit that underpins everything I've found in everyone's life ever. Every single day, there's something that will shift in ourselves, there's something that will change. Grief is a rite of passage that we all have. And some people, it's pre-mapped out. You know, some people might be born into families where we grieve like this, and they're shown ways of doing things. And sometimes that can work, and sometimes that can feel resonant and very powerful, because if you have almost like an instruction manual on the processes of something changing, and it's usually associated with someone physically dying, that can be quite helpful. But what I've found again is that actually the people I've spoken to and worked with since I've been focusing more on grief as a subject, let's say, that actually when we grieve one thing, often it brings up all the other things we never truly grieved for. And if I said to you, what does grief mean to you? Most people that I've asked that question to have said someone dying, right? Feeling the feelings after someone has died, which is the most obvious answer. But like I said, grief is actually a rite of passage back inwards into your soul. It's actually an invitation to come back in and connect with your higher self and your emotions, and actually process who you're becoming in this world. Because if you think about it, and again, this is experience working with teenagers and parents over the years, if you lose a job or a friendship, or something goes horribly wrong with something in your life and everything changes and you have to move house or whatever, we see that as, I'm going through a big change at the moment, I'm going through something at the moment. But we don't actually acknowledge that we're grieving. We're grieving the loss of who we once were. We're grieving the loss of the something that was once underneath our feet. And this is what grief is. It's actually so under talked about, and it's got so much heaviness to it, that I'm kind of here to change the narrative on that and actually say grief is an invitation to show you that nothing is permanent beneath your feet. And whatever foundations you've built beneath your feet, if you're attaching everything you are to that, of course you're going to feel loss and disorientation when it's taken away. And that's what that invitation is. It's to come into yourself and know who you are and what your soul wants in this world and what you're here to create. And expression of emotion as we process things, as we go through things, is at least what I've found and witnessed in the people I've held space for, is if we allow our emotions to flow when we feel them, don't rush them out and force them out, but if we give them space and time to flow and come out, often the way forward, that rite of passage into who we're becoming, becomes obvious. It becomes crystal clear. We don't need to think it up. It just presents itself. But if we push everything down and go through stuff, and not acknowledge that actually I'm feeling some loss here, I'm feeling some disorientation here, I'm not sure I can relate to this person the same way anymore because they're going through something. The friendship isn't the same. If we push all of that down and just keep going, it's going to keep showing up. Our emotions are going to sabotage whatever it is we're actually trying to work towards or walk towards. So that's kind of the nutshell version of what I do. And I've actually got a little diagram here. It'll probably be reverse on the screen there. But it's a paradigm I've created that leads us towards soul first living, which is at the top here. So I'll just let you have a look at that. On the base here, we have witnessing, it's all backwards, witnessing grief and unleashing truth. You'll see there's arrows between, so they all interlink. But the first kind of part towards living a soul first life, which is living from our heart, living from our intuition rather than our head and all our past experiences and stories, it's actually looking at witnessing what you're going through, seeing it for what it is, speaking it, saying, okay, this is what's happening, this is what I'm experiencing, and unleashing truth. I was playing with this one. I was thinking, shall I put releasing secrets? But then there's a lot of heaviness around the word secrets. But this is kind of the same thing. It's like, what's your heart been holding on to? As you've been looking at your grief and seeing what you're moving through, what do you actually want to say about that? Like, what have you been holding on to? What identity or thoughts or feelings have you been holding on to that are not serving you anymore? And what is your actual truth? How do you want to be? How do you want to express your grief? So this is like the foundational part. But what you will probably realize by now, after having heard me speak, is that you can't We can't do this life alone. We need people. And when we go up this paradigm, once we start to commune with our grief and see it as something that is an invitation inwards, we can start to then move outwards, create connections, and cultivate a sense of belonging in friendships and family relationships, and actual healthy relationships, not ones where people need us to be a certain way, but actually connecting with people in a way that aligns with our heart and our soul, not what people tell us we should be doing or being. And that's ultimately what soul first living is. It's living in a space where we can speak our truth, we can feel our feelings, and we can connect with people in a way that feels right for us. And it's that simple. Well, it sounds simple, but it is that simple. And of course, there are loads of layers as to why we can't easily always do that. We live in different societies, and there's people watching this from all kinds of countries, and there will be different ways of living in society that will sometimes free us up, and other ways will feel restricting. And sometimes it's not that easy to just walk into a room and express your feelings. But it's about actually asking yourself, okay, well, if I'm feeling stuck right now, if I'm feeling like I can't be who I am, or someone's shutting me down, and I need space to feel, I need space to grieve or move through this authentically, what can I change? Do I need to put myself in a different physical environment to give myself that space? Do I need to put more boundaries in place with this person so that I can actually have less time with them because they're making me feel a little bit boxed in? You know, it's asking yourself those questions so you can start to slowly map out, okay, where do I need to go? How can I take care of myself? So that's something I do at events. I run in New Zealand at the moment in-person events called Glitter in Grief. I had my first one in February. And it was just a 2.5 hours of eating and talking and crying and laughing and all in between. And we had teenagers there and retirees there, whole families turned up. And it was a beautiful space where a few of them said to me, I didn't know this was possible. I didn't know I could actually heal so easily just through voicing what I actually feel, not what everyone else is comfortable hearing. And it really lit me up, and I look forward to doing that again. And it's my intention to keep going with it and do it online as well, maybe, and hopefully overseas as well. And as I said, I've experienced witnessing my family go through tragedy and grief and seeing how they've had to push things down as well. So it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I'm really glad I've had the opportunity to share with you.
Wow, thank you so much, Ellie. You know, you've brought to us something that is inevitable. If you are human, the condition of being human is that you will experience some emotion, especially when you lose your loved ones. Now, I've got some people in the room who might have some questions. If anybody's got any questions or comments, please let me know. Anyone? So when you and I met, I think we were talking about my personal experience with grief. I actually ended up getting a counselor who's been helping me work through the loss. Like you, I had multiple deaths in 2020, not from 2018 to 2020. And it hasn't been very, very easy. But the one thing that I found is that grief is not a place to stay. It's a place to visit for a while. And nobody should push you or rush you to be a certain way or to feel a certain way. And that your emotions are like your children. They come to you, you just have to sit with them for a while. You know, little kids want your attention. And the more you push them away, the more they want your attention. So what I've learned to do is when that sadness overcomes me, I have to sit with it. If I resist it, it just gets even worse.
Yeah.
So suicide is a very, very challenging thing, especially for those who get left behind. And youth suicide in New Zealand, Australia is very, very high.
Mm-hmm.
What advice can you give to teenagers right now who might be going through all kinds of mental health issues and have thought and contemplated suicide? Give us some nuggets of wisdom for young people.
Ooh, I think the first thing I'd say is that you're not a number in a system, no matter how much you've been made to feel like one. That's come from personal experience working with teens in that very position. And they've said to me, I just feel like a number. And it's nothing against the mental health system, but it is so overrun, like you said, with so many young people, unfortunately, that they start to feel like just another person on a conveyor belt that's getting fixed. So the first thing I'd encourage, even when it feels like you are, if you have to write it down or see it somewhere frequently, or tell yourself or listen to something that reminds you that you're not a number, you're not broken, that is the first thing I'd say. When you think you've tried everything, you haven't. And that's more of an invitation to ask if, some kids might be feeling it and they've never spoken to a counsellor, they've never spoken to a teacher or a parent or anything, and might be looking for someone to talk to. And there will always be someone. There will always be someone. And sometimes you might have to go through a few people to find the one that works for you. But simply voicing to someone, even if they can't help you, saying, I need some help. I'm experiencing some really dark thoughts. If you can't help me, can you help me find someone that can? And if they say no, then you ask someone else. Don't stop until you find someone that can at least put you on a ramp. And from there, you take your time to find your person, but your person is that they are out there. I can guarantee it. They might not come in the way that you think, and they might not come from a counsellor or a teacher or someone you've always seen as a trusted adult. It might be a stranger you have a conversation with in a cafe that happens to have some insight about something you're going through, and trust that the little things that aren't necessarily fed to you from the system might be just what you need to get you out of the cycle that you're in. Yeah.
And then on the other side, my last question for you is, for those who are grieving, especially who've lost somebody through suicide, guilt is a very, very, very big part of the experience, thinking I should have done more, I could have done more. What advice would you give somebody who is grieving because they lost somebody to suicide?
Advice. I kind of live by that phrase where focus goes, energy flows. So if your focus is constantly on the guilt or the grief, like you said as well, Gertrude, like if your focus is on that for too long, it will consume you. It will send you into a spiral. So we can either spiral down or we can spiral up. So when you find yourself on the cusp of going into that guilt and that grief, ask yourself, okay, well, what can I do right now that is going to change the loss or change the story that happened? Nothing. And there's often nothing you can do. But in that space of neutrality, what I found at least is you can sometimes ask yourself, okay, well, what do I feel right now? Okay, I feel like I'm really angry because this person never did this thing to, like, they should have done that, or I should have spoken to them. So if you feel like you've got unresolved business or things you wish you could have done, ask yourself, am I able to write that on a piece of paper? Am I able to get it out of my system? Do I need to go and have a coffee with this person and just tell them how I feel? Like, relieve yourself gently, but just remember that you cannot change what's happened. All you can do is find your way to be at peace with it. So if that will take baby steps, but don't, like you said, and like I've said, don't sit with it and think that that's all there is to the situation. And remember as well that there's ultimately a lesson in everything. And I had to learn this with my uncle, because he passed away through suicide, and so did his twin brother 30 years prior. So my dad's lost 2 siblings to suicide. And that's always brought up questions like, why us? What's the deal? Why? That's intense. That's insane. But over time, what it has enabled us to see is that it's almost forced the rest of the family to go into their own awakening and their own getting out of their patterns and the things that hold them back. And it took a shake up for them to wake up, if that makes sense. And sometimes that's what's needed, and it's not always obvious, but there will be some sort of golden nugget in there.
Fantastic. Ellie, thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing this really well-needed information. It's always a pleasure to reconnect with you, and it was an honor to have you on our platform today.
Thank
a
you so much.
fantastic day in beautiful New Zealand. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye. Oh, wow. So we are now going to move on to our in-person speakers. Are you ready? And the beautiful Paula is going to start us off. Please take the stage while I read your bio and just reposition myself here. Yeah.
How did we do it? Huh? How did we do it the first time? No, it's not responding now. Focus on the battery that's flat. Okay, what we'll do is let's just move our forward.
So just pass me that thing.
Take a little break. Okay, let's have a little break while we figure out what's going on here. Moving the screen up. We have a 10-minute break. For those who just come, Hamza, can you show people where the loops are? And please help yourselves to teas and coffee. There's waters on the table behind you. Just stay hydrated. Why isn't it working all of a sudden? Don't know. There's a lot of smelling. So you ladies are all good?
Yeah, it's just amazing.
Oh gosh.
I'm just admiring the splendor.
It has been interesting. An interesting couple of days.
Yeah.
So.
So where did you point it to?
Pointing it. Oh, it worked. Let me call David. Oh, there we go. What did you
Oh, no. I was here.
Okay. We're not going to question what or how or what.
Stand there if you want to put it down.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put the stand when you're speaking. Yeah, we will.
Put it aside. She wasn't going to use it.
Doesn't want to use it. Yeah, we'll put it out for you. So you're good?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, and that's all you can do, right?
I actually didn't purchase the tickets, so can I just do that online right now?
I'll give you my account number just now. I'll text it to you.
Because otherwise I have cash.
No, I don't handle cash. And it means I have to go to the bank. I'll just text you my number in a minute.
Can I ask, how's that?
Yep, sure. I'm just waiting for you to go on stage before actually.
Oh, right, okay. Because we actually moved this a bit from memory. So we did a bit of this.
That was more central.
It was more central, yeah.
And
And
just a
this was
small
a bit-
question. So do you want just to head on just for yourself, or are we just doing head on for everyone else as well? Are we doing front on just for you or for everyone?
No, for everyone.
For everyone. And how far are you doing? You're doing the full body, you're doing,
Take a picture
Are
of
you
her
going-
standing there. So show her how you framed it.
Do you not
Because I
want it
think
as last time? Like,
head and shoulders is better.
Yes.
Just take a photo
at least from waist.
from waist, yeah.
Yeah, because it gets a bit small when you're on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Can I come and have a look?
Give me, oh, I'll say.
Hi, Lena.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm good. How are you? I'm sorry to get hold of you at such short notice.
I'm going to.
For some reason, your form didn't come through, and then this morning I saw it. Which part of the city do you live?
So I'm thinking of doing just
Which part of the city?
there, just a smidget.
Okay,
That should be
so are you
fine.
able to come?
Yeah, how are you with the lighting there?
That's okay.
Okay, so that's how it's gonna look online now.
Okay, I'll be publishing our new dates on Monday or Tuesday, and I'll let you know. All right, thanks for getting in touch. All right, bye.
Oh, I'm gonna go that.
Okay, are you ready? Do you have enough light on it? Do you need this one?
This is the main light that's too far away. This
Okay.
will angle it. I'm just making sure.
But I'm talking to the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that look for light? Gertrude? Handsome?
Okay. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
You ready?
We'll just wait till Gladys comes in.
Ladies, would you like to come in? Ladies? Come on in.
Okay, welcome back. We're now having our in-person speakers, starting with the beautiful Paula Fenwick. Thank you so much for being here. And I will read her bio as much as I can. So, Paula Fenwick, author, speaker, facilitator, leadership and resilience coach. She's a seasoned corporate executive with over 30 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry. She excels in strategic planning, operational optimization, and achieving business objectives, having led successful product launches, government negotiations, and advocating strategies in multiple companies. Paula's leadership style emphasizes collaboration and a people-focused approach, driving creativity and performance and efficiency. She mentors emerging leaders, guiding them with her motivating and inspirational management style. Beyond her corporate role, Paula is a passionate advocate for mental health, serving as a crisis counselor and resilience coach. She champions well-being practices and has authored the workbook, Resilience for Life. Additionally, she's dedicated to youth education and mentoring. Paula is a humanitarian, and spirit stems from her upbringing in Africa. So she is one of my sisters from the beautiful country of South Africa. So Paula, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Gertrude. I really appreciate those words, and I'm really enjoying being part of this summit. It's been really amazing to hear the stories of the women that have come before me in the summit. And today I want to share with you a story of a young girl. And growing up in South Africa, this young girl grew up in a cafe with her parents, and she used to talk to everybody and anybody who wanted to listen. She was bubbly and chatty, and she just enjoyed life. And her friends, she didn't go to kinder, so her friends actually were the customers. And she used to sit with them when they were having their tea and toast and whatnot. And it was she was just so free. And don't you love that about kids when they're little? You know, they don't care who they speak to. They just want to get their story out, and there's no inhibitions, and they're just absolutely free when they speak. When she was about 7, she had an elder sister, and her elder sister started dating, and it was her role as a 7-year-old to be a chaperone to her elder sister. Now, what the hell does a 7-year-old know about being a chaperone? I mean, absolutely zip-diddly. Anyway, so one Saturday afternoon, she was in the car with her sister and her sister's boyfriend. They were in the front seat, she was in the back seat, and she was jabbering away as usual. And her sister obviously had other intentions, and she turned around and she said, "You need to stop talking. You're talking too much. People don't like it when you actually are just always talking. Just shut up now. Just be quiet." And in that moment, that little young girl shut up. And that experience alone made her question everything that she was then saying. Because her big sister, she looked up to her. So what her big sister said was right. And she then started judging everything she said, because are they going to like me? Am what I am saying is right? You know, am I talking too much? She went inside and she became a listener. And that incident alone started a 50-year journey into this little young girl coming out of her shell and finding her voice so that she could be able to be herself again. And this was the kind of situations that we don't always know, especially as a parent or as a sibling or as a friend. These comments that just go, you just say something very innocently because her sister didn't really mean anything by it. But the impact that it had. Well, anyway, 50 years on, my name is Paula Fenwick, and I have actually taken the lessons that I learned over the course of those 50 years and what I have researched and what I have learned along the way. And I have published a book, Bounce Back Fast, 5 Practical Steps to Resilience, because this is the lessons that I learned along the way. And I launched this book, and it has gone to a #1 bestseller on Amazon. And it really started and it really kicked off with my divorce. After 15 years of being together, unfortunately, my marriage disintegrated, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I had to actually pick myself up. I had to deal with 2 young children who were 7 and 10 at the time. And I had to find that inner strength. And how I did that and what I did along the way brought me to working out exactly the types of things that people can use, and I wanted to share them. So I would like to talk to you about, so all of a sudden I land up with this book, this wonderful, wonderful book, and I've landed up being an Amazon bestseller, and I've arrived. This is my story. And it is. People say, oh my gosh, it's like overnight success. Yes, it is overnight success. And it took me 10 years. And I'll tell you the story. So what happened 10 years ago? So 10 years ago, I left my corporate job because I had to really, spend time with my daughters. My family and my girls in particular have been absolutely fundamental to my career choices. And in 2013, I felt that I needed to actually be, especially with my elder daughter, who was going through VCE, years 11 and 12. And I felt that I needed to give up my corporate job, and I was going to start a leadership coaching business. This is what I wanted to do. I had done the hard yards. I had really picked myself up from the depths of my despair, and I had learned a lot. And, going back to the type of person that I am, my sort of daily motto is, how may I serve today? That's what I focus on. And I have gone, you know what, I can be a leadership coach. I can help other people. I've got all this experience. I've been a coach before. I've been a mentor before. And in fact, the company that I left were the ones that actually paid for my coaching qualifications. And I left, and I had these two now teenage girls, and I realized that as much as I tried to build this business, it was actually quite hard, because I had to step out into that vulnerable place, both as a person as well as financially. It takes finances to actually start up a business, and I didn't have them. I was a single mum, and I did not have the financial stability to actually really build the business, to be able to sit and create the content that I needed to create. And I basically did that. I tried for about 2 or 3 years, but I was also doing consulting back into pharmacy, into the pharmaceutical industry. And that was very lucrative. So what I did was I realized that I became more and more involved in my medical and marketing work, and less involved in my leadership coaching. And eventually I got swallowed up back, because it was more financially secure to actually go into the back into the pharmaceutical industry. And even though I went back in, I realized that I was happy. I was actually, I loved my job. I didn't do it for 30 years hating it. I loved it, and I loved the people, and I loved working with the people. But I also realized that I had parked my dream, because I hadn't been able to translate my dream and my vision in 2013 into, and I'd put it on my dream board, but I hadn't had the personal strength, and I'd had way too much fear. Fear of financial disaster had held me back, and I hadn't translated my dream into my reality. So I went back into the corporate world. And then 10 years later, at the beginning of 2023, I just started feeling this uneasiness. And when the universe is trying to give you a kick up the backside, and things start happening, and you're feeling this internal tug. And remember that back in 2013, I put on my dream board, I am a writer. I am an Amazon bestseller author. I put that on my dream board, and I basically just parked it. Anyway, at the beginning of last year, I get this absolutely random invite on LinkedIn, And it's this lady, this leadership coach that I had connected with, and a few months before that. And she invited me for a cup of coffee. And I went, God, that's random. But anyway, let's go with it. I mean, it's that random. So I went along. I actually took leave. I took leave on that day because I thought, oh, this is cool. I don't know, something's happening. So I went along, and we sit down, and hello. And she goes, so where do I know you from? I said, you don't. And then she goes, oh yeah, so she had a look at my LinkedIn profile, and she saw the different companies I'd been in. So she sort of said, oh, do you know so-and-so? Do you know? No. And she said, so why did you come? And I said, well, when something is this random, the universe is obviously trying to tell me something. So I'm here. And there was this awkward moment. There was this like momentary pause, like, oh, well, now what? You know, we've kind of covered everything. And so I knew she was an author. So I said to her, so tell me about your book. You know, hey, how was it? Oh, she tells me about her book, and she's like, and you know, I wrote my book in a week. And I went, oh my God, that's amazing. I was absolutely gobsmacked, because how can you write a book in a week? You know, I've been thinking about it for 10 years, and how can you possibly write a book in a week? So she said, no, I did, and I went through these publishers, and they coach you. You have this intensive week that they coach you through, and I wrote my book in a week. And I went, give me the details. And so she did. And I was just absolutely compelled to follow this up. So I actually did. I followed up with a publisher, and I was bowled over. I was going to do it. And their next intensive was the first week in June. Okay, I was in, signed up. That's it, I'm in. But then there was a problem. The first week in June, I was due to go to a medical conference in Chicago. And I went, well, I actually really want to leave pharma. I don't have a job to go to. If I'm going to write my book, I can't go to Chicago. If I go to Chicago, I can't write my book. And all those fears, the fears of financial insecurity. I mean, you can imagine, I was the medical director of a pharmaceutical company, and I was going to do the security of a job or to follow my passion, which wasn't going to be. And I just tussled with it. It was just so, the internal tussle was so immense. I didn't know where to put myself. And in fact, I actually got sick. I got very, very sick. Just the flu and the, you know, like just normal flu stuff, but my immunity was rock bottom. And I just got so sick, but I did not have the courage to resign. I have a big mortgage, commitments, all of these kind of things. I couldn't just resign. Anyway, I decided to go to Chicago. And I was still running high fevers. I powered on painkillers, and it was absolutely awful. I came back from Chicago, and I basically fell in a heap. I was sick for another 2 weeks after that. And eventually I went, no, you know what? I have to do this book. And so I booked in to the October intensive. I was going to write my book in October. And I booked it in, took the leave, the whole thing. But I was still working for the company, and I still had that fear. So what the universe did, the universe kind of just cranked up the heat. And things just got more and more uncomfortable, and more away from my values, from my purpose. And it was just impossible. But you know, when the universe cranks up the heat, it also shows you a way through the fire. And in a very arbitrary conversation with a colleague, she goes, oh yeah, you should read this book. It's The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. and I read the book, and it was about surrender. And I did. And I resigned. And I left the company on the 13th of October last year. It was a Friday. And on the 16th of October, which was a Monday, I started writing my book. And this book came 100%. I had basically just dropped it all. I had dropped all the fears, dropped everything. And this book came straight from my heart. And we've actually had a speaker this morning talk about it's not so much her, it's through her. And I know from my coaching, because sometimes I go, you know, something comes out of my mouth and I go, oh shit, that was really good. And the same thing with this book. You know, this book came 100% through me. Yes, it's my stories, and yes, it's my experience. And yes, there was a lot of stuff in there that I had researched and learnt and all of that kind of stuff. But the actual words, they came through. They came through me. And the lessons came through me. And I actually realized that pretty much everything that I had done, all the experiences that I had were coming through me with this book. And it was my duty to actually just let it go. And it's not easy. And at the end of the book, I thought, this is fantastic. I've put everything out there. This is great. And then I realized that writing the book in 1 week was the easy part. Because then I had to launch the book. It took me 4 months to launch through the publishing process and all of that, which actually I believe was quite quickly. And I realized that writing the book and putting myself out on these pages was the simple part. I now had to get outside of myself and be seen. I had to stand up and I had to share my story, because my goal was not just writing a book. I wanted to write a book that actually would make a difference in other people's lives. I wanted to write a book that would stir people. I wanted to write a book that would inspire people. And in order to do that, I had to get out of myself and my fears. I had this humongous thing. I didn't, social media was for posting, restaurant visits and smiling selfie, blah, blah. All of a sudden, I was using social media as a platform to share my voice. I had to step up and be seen. And the fears that brought up, I thought I dealt with them. They came up over and over and over again. And each time I went back to my basics. This is what I stand for. And by using it, that's how I got through. And that's how I got through to today. And I have not looked back. And it's one of those things that I've realized that, yes, success may have come overnight, but it took me 10 years. It took me 10 years to grow into my vision. I had a vision 10 years ago, but I didn't know what it was going to look like. And this book, yes, I have put all the gems that I know in here. The 5 practical steps essentially is to look within and take ownership of you. And that's what I had to do over and over and over again to actually get my message out. It is to connect to our compass, to our direction, to our purpose, and stand by our values, no matter what might be out there, is to really stand for what we believe in and for what we need to do with our lives. And to connect, we don't have to do it alone. We can connect to the people, to our tribe. And we need to connect to our bodies and our emotions and our mindset. Because what held me back was the self-talk all the time. And to embrace change. And through all of this, I feel that we need to tell our story. So if you think back of that 7-year-old little girl, 50 years later, that little girl is able to stand before you and stand in her own strength and be able to be herself and be able to shine. And I also write poetry, and the last poem in this book is Don't Be Afraid to Shine. And that is my message to everyone, is to be yourself and don't be afraid to shine. And my name is Paula Fenwick, and I'm here, and I am not afraid to shine. And I am so thankful that I've had this opportunity. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Paula. Absolutely amazing story and journey you've been on. Now, bouncing back is not easy. You've had a lot of challenges in your life. What keeps you going? What motivates you? What can you say to a woman who's down right now on how she can bounce back?
The most important thing is to look within, because we think we don't have the strength, but we actually do. When we give that strength to our environment and to other people, that is when we stay down. It becomes overwhelming. But when we go within and find that inner strength and know who we are, really know who we are, know what our emotional triggers are, that's how we can bounce back. So out of everything, knowing who you are and honoring that. And yes, there's so many fears. It's the fears that keep you down, and it's your own self-talk. So as much as that strength is within you, so are all the barriers and challenges. Because yes, there's circumstances, and you know what? There's circumstances. Everybody's got circumstances, and they're all different. But essentially, we're all the same. We all love. We all grieve. We all have joy and happiness, sadness. Those are all the same. And by finding what is affecting you at that time, what is keeping you down there, will help you bounce back, essentially.
I love that. Any questions from our audience for Paula before we let her go? Any comments, questions? Okay, Paula, we will release you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay, what an interesting morning. And it looks like today is all about South Africa, because our next speaker also hails originally from South Africa. Arina, do you want to come up to the stage? So, Arina Wader hails from a strong lineage of both South African and Japanese descent, with the likes of samurais, scholars, geishas in her ancestry. With such a bloodline of disciplined warriors and a keen sense of challenge and discipline, she's known as the Rock in her sisterhood. From a young age, she knew she wanted to be more from life than simply going along with the status quo in Japan. She pushed herself to move to Australia, despite the traditional path of women in her homeland, instead of pouring herself into learning all she could about nutrition, learning deeply about food and its effect on our well-being, and training alongside professional athletes. She didn't realize just how deeply this journey would take her when she realized within herself just how her emotions were tied to eating, and how this is commonly a tool for avoidance and disassociation in our society today. She's really done the work, alchemized her inner journey, and is here to share a story of being brave, truthfully despite the fear, discovering our emotions, listening to the body, and finding the right medicine within ourselves. So thank you so much for being here and gracing our stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Gertrude.
for this opportunity. I want to give thanks to the land I'm on in Narm, the people of this land, their ancestors and spirits, animals and plants here. Thanks to the children of this land. May they be returned to their families, and may their wisdom grow and inform how we live here. I also acknowledge your ancestors, all of us here today, and that they brought us to life. I am so grateful to come from a lineage of both South African and Japanese descent, with the likes of samurai, geishas, and scholars in my ancestry. Perhaps for this reason, I've always had a strong sense and need for challenging myself and self-discipline. I grew up in Japan with this strong ancient culture running through my blood, though I felt a little out of place sometimes, being of mixed heritage. Here in Melbourne, I'm seen as the rock by my sisterhood, for my stoic nature and strength. I am grateful for the gifts the Japanese culture has brought me. I am also grateful for being able to grow up and out of its more suppressive shadows. My message here today is one of self-liberation, to discover the fruits of being emotionally truthful with ourselves and others. I think we are seeing more of this in women in different parts of our culture. In Japan, there is a strong status quo with a narrow path expected of women in terms of how we should act and be in society. It is time that all cultures evolve into deeper truthfulness, and women, I believe, are the initiators of this evolution. Today, I'm here to speak about the medicine of truth. I want to talk about the emotional self-expression and loving radical honesty. I believe as women, we deserve to meet our potential in this lifetime. We must push our limits and keep challenging ourselves. Even amidst motherhood, we cannot stop to go within, develop, and grow past our greatest fears. We need to move beyond our fear of expressing our so-called bad emotions, such as anger, especially if we have grown in an environment where we have been told not to speak up. I have done this work firsthand, and that is what I'm here to speak about today. Since being on this journey of alchemizing my fear to speak brazenly, I ask us sisters to start doing the same for each other. So this is how it started for me. I knew I didn't want the narrow path set before me. I had to move out of Japan to broaden my horizon. So I came here to the bright, beautiful, bizarre land of Australia, a completely different place, and I poured my passion into studying nutrition. I remember my grandmother. She's a brilliant cook. She used to make traditional Japanese food. And she studied to become a professional chef, which was very rare back in those times. My mother studied acupuncture, another rare career path for women in those days. And she taught me about the sacred women's wisdom of food, herbs, and going with the natural cycles of our body. So I understood the foundational material aspects of health. I've received so much from them, and I wanted to gift my children the gift of nourishment my mother and grandmother has given me. So I learned as much as I could. Here, I got married. I have children, and my life seemed beautiful. I love cooking and I love food. I put so much love and effort in my meals, especially desserts for my family and friends. but I noticed something occurring within me when I was on my own with food. Despite seeing food in terms of its health benefits and art form, it became a coping mechanism for me, a way of avoiding myself. Something wasn't right within me because I felt out of control in the seemingly small area in my life. My relationship with food, which was becoming a tool to cope, was a symptom of something deeper within me. A signal. It was signaling me that I was in fact avoiding something. I was so used to being stoic, having everything together, but I was out of touch with food and my relationship to it. My life seemed perfect. It was beautiful. I had achieved everything my parents would have wished for. I had the house, the husband, the kids. So why would I not be happy? What was this coping even for? We use so many things to avoid. We can somatize. We can come up with physiological pains like back pain and nerve tingles. We can intellectualize. We can be stuck in our heads in the clouds and never do anything about it. Form addictions and even project our shadows onto other people, all to avoid what is happening within us. We can be quietly depressed. Many Asian women become suicidal due to depression. The cost of not being honest and not expressing our emotions can be detrimental. We may think we're getting away by avoiding, but it will always spill out somehow. It wasn't until I found a safe space in sisterhood where I could express my radical honesty that I finally realized what I was avoiding. It was deep, long-held emotions from my childhood wounds. I began to slowly understand why I had so much fear around speaking up, especially emotions which we have learned to label as negative, like anger, shame, and sadness. All messengers pointing to something within our lives, making me play small in day-to-day relationships. I've always faced my limits and worked through them. Ask me to stay in an ice bath for 16 minutes or hold my breath under it for 1 minute and 20 seconds. I can do that. But when it came to feeling the discomfort and speaking up honestly about my true emotions, well, that was a different story. It was surprising to see how much power my fear of speaking up had over me. But this is what we can do to overcome it. First, we have to face the truth within us, whatever we're in denial of. And second, we need to accept how we feel and actually feel the discomfort of the feeling. And then finally, even when we're really scared, we need to speak it. I went through this process in every area of my life. When you speak your truth, you have to be willing to face those fears. The fears that show up in our emotional honesty. It might mean losing our friendships or relationships and the things that we're attached to. I did this anyways. The irony was I had the willingness to risk all these things in order to reclaim the depth of them. So I'm here to tell you, I know the courage this takes. As a woman who has grown up in a society where we were told not to speak up, and being feminine meant being passive, speaking up feels terrifying. But I tried my best, and my partner was receptive, and now is inspired on his own journey. The same happened in my sisterhood. I confronted my shadows with my friendship group. There are so many sisterhood wounds and female friendships, it's very easy to sweep them under the rug with each other. Until one day, it implodes. We need to mature as a human race on this front as well. If we're not careful, these sisterhood shadows will otherwise ruin very good friendships. I'm so grateful for Caitlin Prede and Sharon Bolt for teaching me about sisterhood wounds. I know, and sorry, despite the fear of confrontation, I now speak up when I feel a sister is acting from a place of shadow, with love and non-judgment. If people aren't ready for the truth, that's okay. Everyone is on their journey at their own pace, and so am I. So now I am here to say, admit to yourself whatever you are in denial of. Take a second to be quiet and ask God or your higher soul. Write the question down and ask, what am I in denial of? What discomfort am I avoiding feeling in my body? Talk about these feelings with the people you can trust. Move through the fear. Test yourself to see how much more truthful you can be, especially if you're angry or sad or hurt. You deserve to be aligned with the truth and be loved as you are, as you truly are. I am now on a journey of intuitive eating, which I understand now is connected to my emotional honesty. We do not do these things like use food as a coping mechanism or drugs or sex or social media in a vacuum. We are all connected to each other. The feelings, when we feel affected, it affects how we are engaged with the outer world. Some people are safer than others, so start talking to the safe ones. Build your bravery. We can talk honestly about the contents of our hearts and minds and soul. This is how we become braver and braver. Without fear, you will never have the opportunity to be courageous. This is the other side of health that I think soon more research will show that we need to see health from a more holistic aspect, especially in this Anglo society. Gabor Mate, Howard Schubiner, Alyssa Vitti are just some of the people who are doing this work. I'm here to simply say, despite all fear, it's time to feel and speak. Let's gift our children with not just the nourishing food, but also the gift of emotional honesty, because truth is our best medicine. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. What a journey you've been on.
Yes.
You know, I read a quote once that said, everything you want is on the other side of fear. How does it feel now that you're on the other side?
Well, I suppose it never really goes away, but it's just about having the strength to just notice it and just sit with it and just trust that we're okay. Yeah.
I love that. So if you were to be asked by another woman from a culture similar to yours, who has never stepped up, is fearful to stand on a stage and speak, based on your experience now, why do you think it's important for her to use her voice, and what's the best advice you can give her?
It's important because really truth is what keeps us strong and keeps us centered and aligned with our purpose in our life. And I think the best way to practice speaking our truth is really just find the people in our lives that we can trust and can be honest with, the safe people, whoever it might be your partner, a friend, even your pets, and just start speaking. Just like use your words and just speaking to someone. Go out in nature and perhaps talk to the trees, whatever that feels comfortable.
Do whatever it takes.
Do whatever it takes, but it's just a matter of actually voicing, and that's what really matters.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my coaches said to me, speaking is like playing a musical instrument. You'll never see a pianist who will get up and pick up a violin or start playing the piano without practice. So it is all about practice, practice, practice. And if you have to talk to the trees, talk to the trees. I think that's a really good one. Any questions or comments from the audience? About using your voice as a woman. No questions, no comments? Thank you so much for coming. Absolutely awesome. Everyone on stage this morning. I love it. Thank you. You can leave it there. I think our next speaker might need it. Do you need it? Okay. All right, we're going to introduce our last speaker for this morning. An amazing young woman from my homeland, from Zimbabwe. Kimberly is an amazing young woman who is going to share her story and her journey of coming to Australia and what she does. I'll just read her bio. So, Kimberly Wadewata is a pharmacy manager at Chemist Discount Center. She's popularly known as Kimberly Renee. She's a pharmacist, a social media content creator, and soon-to-be presenter. She has a multitude of passions, which include and not limited to empowering disadvantaged youth to be the best versions of themselves, promoting and optimizing the safe use of medications in mental health conditions, and interviewing people from different walks of life. At just 22 years old, Kimberly has a variety of accolades to her name. However, the achievements she is most proud of are living in 3 countries, Zimbabwe, England, and Australia, and making excellent friends, being a youth parliamentarian member, representing her country of Zimbabwe in the Model United Nations at the age of 15, attaining a 91.45 ATAR in the graduating class of 2017, winning Media Personality of the Year award in 2019, and graduating with the first class honors in a Bachelor of Pharmacy. Through growing platforms, Kimberly aims to become a symbol of hope to many young women and to show them that it's not only possible to relentlessly chase your dreams, but to simultaneously excel while doing so. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, Kimberly. The stage is yours. Thank you. Okay, all right, I'll do that.
Alrighty, good morning, everyone. Gertrude, thank you so much for this opportunity and having me here. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to speak in front of everyone today. So, as Gertrude introduced me, my name is Kimberly Wadewata, and I am 23 years old, 24 in 19 days. And my duty to you today is to help you feel inspired and to be the best version of yourself. I'm going to begin my talk with a quote that I came across 2 days ago. that I've really started loving. It reads, I believe that if at the end of it all, according to our abilities, we have done something to make others a little happier and something to make ourselves a little happier, that is about the best we can do. To make others less happy is a crime. To make ourselves unhappy is where all the crime starts. We must try to contribute joy to the world. That is true, no matter what our problems, our health, or our circumstances, we must try. And that's by Roger Ebert. Has anyone heard of this quote before?
No.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, like, who am I? So let's just take it all the way back. As I've said, I'm 23 years old. I was born in Zimbabwe in a small town called Marandera. And then I relocated to England with my parents when I was 4 years old. I lived in Leicester, and we then relocated to Australia at 14 years old. So I spent 10 years in the UK. When I relocated to Australia, we moved to a very small regional town called Toorak. And it was quite difficult. I was away from my friends, my family. From England to regional Australia, it was a very, very different atmosphere. And at that stage, I didn't know what I was going to amount to, what I wanted to do. And I attended St. Paul's Anglican Grammar School in a small regional town called Warragul. And during high school, I was the type of person that wanted to grab every single opportunity. So as Gertrude read, I was in the youth parliament. When I was in Leicester, I was also into sports. I was into just a whole range of different things. Any opportunity that came up, I was on the forefront. I was also involved in the school musicals, Beauty and the Beast. In particular, I was a part of the Model United Nations. I did public speaking competitions, everything you name it. I wanted to expose myself to every single opportunity possible. However, I was always unsure of exactly what I wanted to do. And I cannot lie, that made me a tiny bit scared. But what I knew for sure is that I had a passion in helping people. And I had a passion of being of service. I wanted to make an impact. So I finished year 12 with a 91.45 ATAR, which means I graduated at the top 8.55% of the state. I was ecstatic. I was over the moon. My parents were over the moon. It was amazing. And off I was at 17 years old, ready to take on university, of which I went to study a Bachelor of Pharmacy. I ended up with pharmacy because I was into sciences. It offered a great life balance, and it sounded like a good idea. University was a fun experience, and that is where I met my best friends. So it was just absolutely amazing. Although the one thing I do regret about university is that I didn't participate in clubs. If I could go back and do the experience again, I would be joining a lot more clubs. During my time in university, I got unique and interesting opportunities. I don't know if I've already mentioned, but I'm really into creating things. So I started a YouTube channel. I now currently run 2 YouTube channels, and I was really into fashion and would start posting my fashion and outfits on Instagram. So because of this continuous posting, in 2020, I received opportunities to work with big fashion brands such as Glassons, Princess Polly, and Boohoo. And that was amazing. I really enjoyed the work, and I was making an impact in a different sort of way. And then back in 2022, I started my talk show called Kim Renee TV, where I tell the stories of inspirational people. And in 2021, I was then interviewed by ABC Gippsland on how to manage being academic whilst also simultaneously being a creative. And I was lucky enough that last year, I was one out of the 4 recipients of the Carlas and Patty Scholarship, which aims to fund young women's dreams. So after all of these accolades, I still graduated university with a first class honors. And then I went on to do my intern year at the Trove Regional Hospital. And after my intern year, at the age of 22, I became a manager. And this was a very unique experience because what do I know at 22 years old? I just come out of university, I know nothing, but I felt it right in my soul to take that risk anyway. And that is what my talk is mostly centered about, taking that risk and being audacious. I look at my life so far, and I look at this and I think all of these wonderful opportunities I've gotten, and things that I've achieved, I often say to myself, I'm like, what is it? Am I just lucky? Am I in the right place at the right time? What is going on? But I've started to realize that the answer is not luck. The answer is living audaciously and continually striving to be the best version of myself so that I can serve others, to be of service. So I really resonated with your talk. Well, I really resonated. And I think finally, it took us a while to get here, but I know what it is that I want to do, which is exactly what I'm doing on this stage. I have a deep passion for helping others and inspiring them to chase the dream. I think apart from COVID, the real pandemic that we're in is people are not believing in themselves, especially people of my age and going below. People don't have the courage to chase after what they want out of this life, which really surprises me because I'm like, guys, we have one life, like live it and just chase after what you want. And it's just not sitting right with me anymore. So with that being said, I'm here to tell you that this speech at the summit today, it's not necessarily about me and everything that I've achieved. It's about everyone in here. I want to tell you that you all have the tools that you need to succeed. You don't need to be like anyone else, but you need to be like you. I want to tell you that you need to live your life audaciously. You need to take those risks and you need to chase those dreams. We only have one life. So stop being afraid and strive every day to be the best version of yourself. With my story, I have told you that it is possible to achieve all of these things. It is possible to fight and follow your dreams. So now, I know you're probably asking, well, that's all fair and fine to say that, Kim, but how exactly am I going to start? And I don't have all of the answers yet, but here are some. If someone says no or denies you of an opportunity, you're just simply asking the wrong person. Just keep knocking until somebody answers. Strive to continually better yourself every day and also strive to continually better others. Every day ask yourself, how can you be of service to others? Take every single opportunity, even if you think you're not ready, just go for it. Taking that opportunity to become a manager was probably the best thing that I've done for my career so far. You're not going to compare yourself to anyone but yourself. Compare yourself to the person that you were yesterday and not who somebody else is today. And lastly, there is no such thing as failure. I personally do not believe in failure because failure only happens when you give up. And I'll end my speech with a quote that I love by Sir Isaac Newton, which is, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. Use the stories that you've heard here today to help you strive and continuously chase your dream. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Thank you.
What amazes me about you is you and I met literally a day ago. And you talk about luck. I believe you create your luck when you say yes to opportunities when they show up, even if you're not sure. What made you say yes to be here today? What was it about this event that made you say, I'm going to do it?
I think honestly, it's what Paul has said. I was just like, I've always wanted to give talks. I've been praying to the universe, praying to God about getting more speaking opportunities. And then this random opportunity comes up. I'm into women empowerment. I was like, the universe must be conspiring somehow to make this happen. And I love everything women empowerment. And I just knew I'd get a lot out of today, which I have.
Fantastic. Any questions from the audience? This was awesome. Any comments? Thank you so much for being here with us today. Wow. So ladies, before we go, let's have a photo opportunity. We're going to arrange these drums in front here. We're going to do some drumming and impromptu.
Are you still live?
Yes. And we do want it to be live. Come. We're going to dance. Those who sing can sing.
Just a little light bulb.
Hey,
Okay, Richard?
little accidents. All right, and be careful of the glass. So, who wants to drum? Who wants to? And the drumming is just a matter of following me with the beat that I will share. So come, relax. Yeah. Hold the drum. Yeah, do a little side drum. Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna sit. You can sit if you like. Hamza might have to adjust.
I'll get you to.
Yeah, I'm not gonna come down. I
Yeah,
can
no.
see the come over here so that we're all in shot. Okay. So the thing about African drumming, right? There is no right or wrong. You just listen to the first beat and then you add your little flavor to it. So that's what we're going to do just to celebrate the end of this day. Come closer. Kind of scoot in because Hamza will be taking photos as well. And then we will end our day. Are we ready? Here we go. Intimacy of the smallest of the group worked as well. Yeah. It really did. And then we can have a big reunion in September after you've come to several of these throughout the year. Just to keep on practicing, right? Tell us when you're ready. Going there. You're a musician? You are? What's your name?
Sarah.
Sarah, nice to meet you. Oh, you're the famous Sarah.
Yes,
I've heard all about you. I've heard some good things.
Picture, then after I'm done with the picture, just keep on going so then the camera can record.
Okay. Oh, this was awesome. Okay, I'm going to switch that off and say goodbye to everybody, but we will take more pictures. Thank you to everybody who joined us today. We are going to continue playing some music, having some fun. Tune in again when the Her Story Summit comes back online. Bye for now, everybody.